Now you are one of the documentary's interviewees, am I correct?
I am indeed, yes.
Can you give us a little bit about your kind of backstory and why you're so integral to this story about the video Nasties?
Well, I was one of the people that published fanzines back in the late 80s, into the early 90s, when that whole era, in the post-video Nasties era of horror fandom, exploded. I also had various run-ins with the law in this country. I was raided by the police at one point, raided by customs as well. So, yeah, I'm quite integral to that whole video Nasties story, I guess.
So where did your kind of love of horror first sort of come into play, and how, how did the video Nasties affect you as a viewer, to getting the pleasure of watching the film?
Well, I've been into horror films since I was a little kid. I think a lot of people are the same way. They just find those films and they love them. They see them on TV, they grow up enjoying that kind of stuff. The video Nasties was a fascinating era because you finally saw films that you hadn't seen before, that the BBFC wouldn't allow, that British distributors wouldn't touch. And so suddenly there are these amazing films that you'd never heard of that you could find and watch. Some were great, some were awful, but they were all fascinating. And immediately, you think, this is what it's about. This is what I've been denied for a good, 20 years of my life.
And you mentioned before that outlawed the videos. So yourself as a viewer, you were under the scrutiny of the police. I mean, that must have been terrifying, actually.
Well, it was awful at the time because you suddenly saw something that you loved being taken away from you. And I'd never really experienced that before. You're 15 years old, you think these films are there forever, and suddenly they're gone and people have been arrested. And you think, why is this? They're just movies, they're just horror films, there's nothing wrong with them. And then you suddenly start realising, oh, this is going on with other stuff as well. There's a whole political thing going on here. And it really, it does politicise you in a certain strange kind of way.
And with regards to today's screening of Video Nasties, why is it important that Jake and Mark have made this documentary?
Well, I think this one in particular, as opposed to the first one, is telling a story that nobody knows. People think that the Video Nasties thing happened and then it stopped. But actually it carried on for a long time, and it got, in a strange way, it got worse. And I think telling that story and telling what happened to people, how people were arrested, how their lives were destroyed, how censorship just grew and grew insidiously, is a really fascinating tale, and it's a great film.
And for you as a writer as well, the whole sort of concept of being your freedom of speech being taken away from you, that must be really important, that you do have a voice and that you're able to express yourself creatively.
I think the freedom of speech thing is important, and at that time we actually thought maybe we could be arrested just for writing about these films, let alone watching them, just for knowing they existed. It was a weird situation, and it's still the same now. There are films that you think, if I write about this movie, then people know that I've seen the film, and therefore they can arrest me for just watching it.
I mean, it's hard to believe. Can you thinking back that kind of thing was happening when we seem to be so much more liberated today?
I'm not sure we are more liberated today, to be fair. I think what's happening at the moment is very much like what happened in the mid-80s. It's just got a different face on it. It's the internet rather than video. It's, different variations on the same theme. We're in a very sensorial time right now, and a very dangerous time, and people are not realising that. I think they think we're still quite liberated because we can watch the films we watch. But actually, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's being banned and being taken away from us that we're not really aware of.